Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Welcome in and happy President's Day. It's kind of a snowy one out and about. If you're in the region tonight, drive with care. A little bit of snow, a little bit of ice moving in as well. Meanwhile, it is my pleasure to welcome back a long-time co-host of the show. He hasn't been here in a long time. Jimmy Ty, live from Hamburg, Pennsylvania. And Dave Shannon, live from Altoona tonight. Jimmy, how you doing these days?
Oh, we're busy down here in Shuey.
Okay, and what's happening down there? You're just staying busy with work or what?
Yeah, I'm staying busy with work. We don't have plow trucks in Shoemakersville. Instead, we have pickup trucks.
Pickup trucks, oh, man.
Yeah, so it's quite different down here wherever I live at. So.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, you're getting around okay, though, huh? You can get through anything, really. Dave Shannon.
I've been through most all of it. So.
Oh, man, you're up in Erie. When you're up in Erie and it snows like that off of that lake, does it get pretty wild and wicked, man?
Oh, it sure does.
I bet it does.
I can remember taking what should have been about a 15-minute trip in about an hour and 15.
Oh, I imagine.
One night. And that's on a 4-lane limited access highway.
Woo, man. So,
whoa.
Hey, drive with care out there this evening. A little wicked. It is winter in Pennsylvania. What can I tell you? Meanwhile, it's spring in Florida soon because the Pirates are heading there. We'll talk about the Pirates and the upcoming season. Also talk about college basketball, the Penguins, and a whole lot more. Stick around for that. Jimmy, first of all, I was alerted earlier this evening. Chad States, by the way, couldn't be with us. He's busy, and we miss you, Chad, if you happen to listen into one of the podcasts or rebroadcasts. But Chad alerted me to something on Facebook on your page. You went to a McDonald's and you ordered a meal. Was it like a Happy Meal or something? And you put it down on the table. No. What happened there, Jimmy?
Okay, what happened was I had some free time before I went to work, so I'm like, well, I'm going to go eat real quick before I head into work.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped at McDonald's up here in Hamburg, and next thing I know, I went to the restroom for literally a minute.
You take your meal with you?
My food was still on my table. Didn't think anybody was going to do anything. I come back, and there's this old couple, probably around like 60, 70 years old, just sitting there, and I'm like, where's my food? Where's my food? So I went up to the manager, and I told him, I said, hey, them people threw my food away. So they asked everybody who worked at McDonald's if they touched my food.
Yeah.
All the crew members, and they all denied it. So, I walked up nice and politely, being Jimmy here.
And you said to the older people.
I said to the older people, I said, you guys are very rude for throwing somebody's food away. Goodbye. I walked out of McDonald's. But I did get free food after that.
How'd that work
out?
Or somewhere else?
Yeah, the same McDonald's?
At the same McDonald's.
All right, so they
complimented me on a free burger, free fries, free soft drink, the whole 9 yards.
And those old people, how do you know they didn't eat your food, Jimmy? You didn't give them a chance to answer. Like, why did you said I wasn't rude, but I went up to them and said, what'd you do with my food?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, you threw my food away.
Yeah, and be careful when you say they're old people, like in their 60s and 70s. Because I'm in my 60s. I don't consider myself old just yet, Jimmy. All right.
Drake, you are a young 60.
Well, I appreciate that. But, Dave, I had to have him tell that story because I almost peed myself when I saw it on Facebook. You could obviously tell Jimmy was in a rant. I mean, it didn't matter who was watching it or seeing it on Facebook. Were you hoping the old people saw it, Jimmy, or what?
I don't know.
All right.
Just had to get it off his chest, that's all.
I had to get it off my chest.
Well, you got comped, so happy President's Day to you. Jimmy Ty live from Hamburg. We've got Dave Shannon live in Altoona, and I am Greg Banks in the studio. By the way, if you'd like to join us tonight on Monday Night Sports Talk, simply call us. 814-242-4845 is our number. That's 814-242-4845, and I think tonight you might want to jump in, only because the first thing we're going to talk about here, Dave and Jimmy, would be the new allegations of Peyton Manning. People bring up his name about things that we talked about here on Monday Night Sports Talk, Dave, last week just briefly. HGH, of course, a splendid Super Bowl. We're thinking perhaps maybe Peyton will retire soon. He has not announced that. But now there might be a problem going back 20 years ago when allegedly, when he was a freshman at the University of Tennessee, he I don't know if you would consider Dave inappropriately touching someone, but let me set up the scenario. He was sitting on a table, a training table, if you will, getting his legs stretched, perhaps maybe sitting on the table, getting his legs worked on, when in fact it was a female trainer. She was an adult at the time, probably 22, 23.
Yeah, not a student trainer.
Not a student trainer,
Yeah.
working for UT. And for some reason, he just stood up and he dropped his pants and he put his genitalia on her face. And I guess, I don't know if he would have laughed, chuckled, or what he did, but obviously when it came to the forefront and she mentioned it to somebody at UT, they brought in some players who Peyton said, well, I was trying to moon so-and-so. Well, so-and-so wasn't even in the room. So there again were allegations. There could have been a lawsuit. They settled for about $300,000. Recently, 6 players, and I don't know if they're all football players, but have been accused of inappropriate touch under Title IX. And, of course, we've gotten this new data now from that case back in 1997, which kind of besmirches Peyton's name. And having said that, obviously, Dave, he's an iconic player. He's going into the Hall of Fame. But how does this affect his life going forward? Because there are going to be some things coming out of this allegation at some given time.
Well, it depends on how hard the media pounds on it as to whether his endorsements that he has are going to go away. And it's kind of a shame. I mean, depending on how hard this does get pushed in the media and how hard this court trial proceeds, now that this Title IX suit has been brought, that it's going to be, it tarnishes the fact that he retired. It's kind of like, well, he retired and ran away from, all of this stuff. And, I hate to see that happen. I mean, the guy's career stands as the guy's career. He's got the additional allegations that were made by Al Jazeera when it comes to HGH.
Right.
And so the bottom line is, I think he's going to retire.
Yeah.
I certainly would if it were me.
Yeah.
How can you go out much better than that? And secondly, it's nice to have that additional income. I'm sure Peyton has enough money banked away to do just about anything he'd like to do for the remainder of his life. But now he's going to have to spend that money to end up, defending himself in court. So, where it goes from here really is up to the media. How hard does this get pounded? Today's kind of like the first day that this came to light.
Right.
And has become front page news as far as the sports pages go. And I guess according to what you told me, Greg, NBC's nightly news.
Right.
Last night, it was the second story in the news after the death of Supreme Court Justice
Antonin Scalia. Yeah.
Yeah, Antonin Scalia. So,
Right.
wow.
Hey,
when it makes it that far, and if it keeps getting pounded on, it's going to be some tough times for him.
Well,
eventually, I think he rises from the ashes, but it's a heck of a way to spend your initial time of retirement having to deal with this.
Yeah, well, he does have Ari Fleischer as his counsel, who is a well-noted attorney and, of course, a sports marketing guy, too, Jimmy. In light of that, especially because Peyton got this guy right after the HGH thing came out, which Peyton, by the way, made a statement, if you remember, right after that. Yeah. You think he'll be forthcoming on this one, Jimmy? You think he's going to come up? He hasn't said anything yet, and this actually hit the press on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, he'll say something, and it's Peyton Manning.
Okay.
It's Peyton Manning.
Do you think they're working on a deal now, or they're working on the verbiage?
They're working on something, but the thing is a question to Dave and to you, Greg. I'm as old as Peyton Manning, okay?
Right.
I have no idea what the heck I did my freshman year in college.
Yeah.
At Pitt Johnstown 20 years ago.
Right.
So that's my thing is because it's Peyton Manning, first off, people want to go after Peyton's money. They want these girls, these whatever, they want Peyton's money.
Well, wait a second.
Why wasn't this allegation brought up whenever he was not the best quarterback in the world?
Well, here's why. Because, again, I mentioned this to Dave, too. It came to light not only back then when people were talking about it, and it was settled for $300,000, supposedly, okay? But there was a consent decree, Dave, I don't know if that's what they call it, where both parties agreed never to speak about it again. And
Right.
then what happened was it was referred to in a book that Peyton did with his father in 2003. So the woman basically said, wait a second, that's me they're talking about, even though they didn't use her name. They used that point of reference, which now she was slandered, okay? But remember, in the last 6 to 7 weeks, there have been 6 incidents that have occurred at the University of Tennessee, which now brings all this to light because you've got people going back, like Paul Feinbaum, and who was it? Sean King did the story, I believe, for USA. He went back and he studied that case that the allegations, by the way,
Greg, what college doesn't that happen at?
it happens, Jimmy. It happens at every college.
It happens at every college,
but
because it's Peyton Manning.
But here's the other side of it. What happened was when he mentioned people's names in these allegations, who he supposedly was mooning, and they weren't even in the room, he ruined the career of one of the football players who was told basically, now remember, this is a cover-up at UT, he was basically told, listen, you have to say that you were there because if you don't, you know what I'm saying, you might get kicked off the football team. Well, he got kicked off the football team because he wasn't willing to back up the story that Peyton Manning had said where he was mooning him, when in fact, supposedly nobody was in the room other than he and the trainer. Do you understand where I'm coming from there? And Dave, in that light, a lot of people have gotten hurt just over that one allegation. And again, remember, Peyton is sort of like that kind of, good old boy, and blah, blah, blah. And it just so happens he threw a couple guys under the bus 20 years ago, and his dad continued to cover it up. Now, why would they put that in the book? Dave, did it make any sense? They should have had a lawyer back then, don't you think?
Well, if you're writing a book and you know what you made as far as an agreement with someone, a consent decree, as far as that particular trial goes,
right?
Wouldn't you just stay? I mean, you can say, okay, I rose from something, some negative publicity that I received when I was in college, and I was able to get by that. You turn that into a one-sentence deal.
Something positive, perhaps, even. I don't know how it would be positive.
Yeah, whatever. I have no intention on buying the book.
Yeah.
And even if I had it here for free, I don't know if I'd read it.
I'd like to read it now because it has a lot of, it doesn't have, but it has some dirt in there. Go ahead, Dave.
Maybe it'll come back out in paperback.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sure.
the bottom line is that, there's a lot of people. You and I talked about this earlier today when we were discussing where the show might go.
Right.
And we were talking about the fact that, when you reach the success level that Peyton Manning has, there's a lot of people gunning for you.
Oh, yeah.
There are just a ton of people that are out there, and it's like, anything I can do to make him look like know what, I'm going to go ahead and do.
Right.
And so with that in mind, there may be additional things that come out about him.
Yeah.
As we move forward.
Well, the HGH thing, Jimmy, might come forward too, because the question that these people never asked about that was, if your wife received the package, which is really none of their business, did your wife receive the package? Because I think he alluded to the fact that the package was delivered to his wife. But nobody ever came back and asked him the question, well, was it delivered to your wife? We don't care what's in the package, but you can see there, Dave, how it is kind of suspicious. Hey, this package arrives. People were talking about HGH. He recovered rather quickly from neck surgery, but the package was in his wife's name. Now, the problem I have with this, guys, real quick, believing our iconic heroes, if you will, Brian Braun, how many times did he deny doing anything? Alex Rodriguez, how many times did he deny having done something? And then, above all,
Roger Clemens would be one of the biggest ones.
Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong was the biggest. He was the biggest. Yeah, but Lance Armstrong was the biggest of them all because he was going out raising funds for cancer.
Yeah.
He was, he had hurt other people. See, he had people lost their jobs because of him. Brian Braun, one guy lost his job because of him. But Lance Armstrong hurt a bunch of people. So we go back to the Peyton Manning case here. He hurt a lot of people. There were guys kicked out of school because of him because they wouldn't cover his ass. See, that's the significance of this story compared to any other story we've ever heard. So if it comes to light, how are you going to feel, Jimmy? And then I'll ask Dave, how are you going to feel if this turns out that Peyton did indeed throw people under the bus? And obviously, somebody settled something for $300,000 already 20 years ago. How would you feel if it came out negatively for Peyton Manning? He's still going to go into the Hall of Fame, mind you.
He'll still be a Hall of Fame, but his reputation will be tarnished because everybody looks at Peyton Manning on the commercials as the goofy Southern boy, whatever you want to call it.
Dave's going crazy right now. Whenever I did that,
but yeah, his image will be tarnished for that.
Dave, let me ask you: is that similar to sort of tarnished Tiger Woods? I mean, when he lost all those endorsements.
There's a similarity. There's definitely a similarity.
Yeah, do you guys think?
And as I say, as this gets amplified in the mainstream media, outside of the sports media, once this becomes a national story,
right,
and you see it more often on news than you do on sports, then that's where the real problem begins, because now it really, and that's the time when it will start to take away the endorsements that he has, because now it's totally tarnished, because Tiger Woods could have had all the indiscretions he wanted.
Yeah.
But once it gets to the point where your wife is meeting you, at your car with a golf club and whacking you with it, that turns it into something completely different. And this is certainly something completely different when you look at all the details. I do want to bring up one thing, Greg.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We had this talk last week when Chad was here.
Right.
And I call it pampered athlete syndrome.
Yeah.
But, Chad brought up probably one of the most interesting points that you can make in regards to pampered athlete system. And who does it fall back on? Chad said last week it falls back on the parents.
The parents, the parents.
Now, if Archie's writing a book with Peyton and they include that,
right,
and I'm sure Archie knew what had gone on in the past and knew about the $300,000 settlement and the agreement that was attached to it.
Yes, sir.
Why would you even include that? So his dad was complicit.
Yes, he was.
In allowing this to happen. So I guess Chad is dead on, because it all falls back. It's bad parenting.
Well, in many circles, in this case, a lot of people are now speculating that the reason why Archie included it in the book was because they had to do the settlement, and this was his way of getting back to this woman, who is now a PhD, by the way. He wanted to refer to her in the book. I mean, he should have gotten counsel, but he felt, I think when this all comes out and it's all said and done, there are people that were privy asking the question. Paul Feinbaum 20 years ago, and Archie shut him down. You know what I'm saying? And he respected that at the time. But now, as we look at the case, that's exactly what Archie was doing. Archie put it in the book because he wanted to get back at this woman who had smudged his son's name at the age of 19. I mean, we've all made mistakes at 19. We've all thought that things were funny. You know what I mean? Now, not being disrespectful, but I don't know if I've ever dropped my pants in front of anybody in my locker room, let alone a female trainer, and then lay my thing on top of her head. Well, in this case, her face, because she had to look up, and that's where it was when she looked up. Jimmy.
Remember a few years ago, I guess it was back in the...
Oh, yeah.
Back in the, the late 80s or mid-80s?
Right.
There was a New England Patriots reporter for a local TV channel.
Okay.
She's a female. Goes into the locker room. Yep. And the players show them their genitals, and one of the players
dropped their towels. Yeah,
dropped the towels. One of the players was All-Pro Dave Meggett.
Yep.
What happened to Dave Meggett after that?
Yeah, he was thrown out of the league, wasn't he? He was gone.
Thrown out of the league.
Much.
He was Well, remember that?
Yeah, and see, I only have a problem with this, Dave, is that they're again cover up, and UT has been covering up stuff for their athletes. Jimmy said it. A lot of schools do it. Baylor has done it. You remember when Baylor covered up the killing of one of their basketball players? Another basketball player killed a player. They covered it up or tried to, and ended up finding out that, and I have no idea what that case was all about, but the coach got fired. Of course, the player went to prison for the rest of his life. I mean, just crazy stuff happens in the world of sports that kind of mirrors life, Dave, as we talked about it before. And this is one of those instances.
And this could certainly bring up big problems for Tennessee in the future.
Oh, no doubt.
Because we saw what happened with Penn State,
right,
on a more egregious front.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, an egregious thing happened at Tennessee. It's apparently been a habit there,
right?
Because there are other cases that have been cited. And the University of Tennessee could be in big trouble here.
Yeah.
And, it's that's the amazing part to me, Greg, is that you have people in charge at the colleges and universities
protecting
that
their
know
own.
These things are going on. You can't be blinded to certain things that go on.
Right. Well, Jameis Winston was another.
Louisville with
and I want to talk about that tonight while we're on this subject. We may as well touch on that. Rick Pitino, just recently, that scandal. I mean, he had another scandal a few years ago, if you remember, with the woman at the restaurant in the bathroom. Now, that's bad enough, okay? That's the coach. I can come back, maybe apologize. I've got to ask forgiveness from my family for my improprieties. Just recently, we find out, the University of Louisville, recruits coming on campus and prostitutes. And then the coach says, I knew nothing of it. Damn, Dave, who's in charge here? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if I'm the head coach, shouldn't I know what the hell's going on my team? And then I'll get to Jimmy. First, Dave.
Yeah, well, plausible deniability is something that people use all the time. What needs to go on, though, is your athletic director has to eventually sit down and say, this is a problem that we have going on.
Yeah.
And I don't care how powerful a coach you are and how much money you bring into this university, that money will stop coming in when you get prosecuted. And we end up losing a whole bunch of, we get the death sentence from the NCAA because of what you're allowing to happen. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter which sport it is. Could be the biggest coach that you can think of.
Yeah, look what happened to Joe Paterno, for instance. I mean, he got caught up in that whole thing. Jim Boeheim is suffering that this year.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, for some reason, you get to these universities, Jimmy, and they just think they're beyond the pale of the law out here, because I've always said university campuses are the most insulated and isolated areas in the world. You may speak to this. I spent some time at Lock Haven as a freshman. That was our whole world. Nothing happened inside that university that everybody didn't know, but we couldn't be touched. We were like Dons, or Teflon Dons. And yourself, it happens at Pitt. You've heard stories. I'm sure it happens at Penn State. It didn't happen a lot back in the 60s or 70s. But in this era, probably in the last, maybe quarter or maybe last couple of decades, it's coming to prominence. So what's your thoughts, Jimmy, on this whole thing? With Pitino even?
Well, I know, with the college coaches, they know when recruits are coming in. They know what's going on. They have their seniors or their junior, their captain saying, hey, why don't you take this 5-star prospect and show them around.
Show them a good time.
And show them around campus, take them to a class or here and there to just show them, that Pitino knew what was going on the whole time. He knew that the prostitutes were coming in because Pitino's on that. He wants them checked in all the time.
Right.
He wants and then the coach will come back, talk to the player and say, hey, so what do you think of campus? This and that.
Yeah.
So Pitino knew all that. It's a cover up to save his butt, to save the University of Louisville.
It's Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Dave Shannon live in Altoona. We've got Jimmy Ty in Hamburg, PA. Greg Banks in the studio. Talking about some improprieties. Peyton Manning caught up in new allegations. And, of course, we touched on Coach Rick Pitino at Louisville with the scandal down there regarding the prostitutes. And let me just say this as we wrap this up, guys. If I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid coming out of high school and you've got cheerleaders showing me around, your school, or you've got some women, Dave, showing me around your school, and one of their jobs, I guess they called them greeters, I forget, ambassadors, that's right, of these universities, and they hooked me up with somebody. I mean, I don't know. I thought she was going to school here. I didn't know they paid for her. Do you think I'm, first of all, going to tell my friends when I get back to home, like Huntington, dude, you're not going to believe the kind of weekend I just had at Penn State? You don't think I'm going to say something?
Absolutely. I mean,
I'm 17,
you're talking
18.
about teenage guys.
Yeah.
And, absolutely.
Jimmy, go ahead.
You're talking about teenage, like Dave said, you're talking about teenage guys hooking up with 22-year-olds.
Exactly, and we're hearing these stories all the time now about these teachers hooking up with their students. It's like, where were they when I was in school? That's the only thing that's sad about that, you know. And I know I'm a parent. If it were one of my sons that did that, I'd be like, "Hey, son, good job." No.
Jeez.
I mean, you know, I'm from the old school, okay? But then I'd punish him and say, give me your phone number. I'm going over to talk to her right now. So, I mean, let's face it. Monday Night Sports Talk, we're just talking about sports tonight. Let's get into something else, guys. NBA All-Stars games. Let me ask you this, first of all, Dave and then Jimmy. Do you think we still have a need for it? It's sort of like the Pro Bowl, especially after the scoring that happened last night, 369 combined points, Dave. I mean, it's a showcase for the NBA, but seriously, come on now.
And I don't know what you do with it, Greg, to make it any kind of an interesting game to watch. You know, the NHL just did an outstanding job turning their previously joke of an all-star game into something that was actually worthwhile watching.
Now, was that for the hockey fans, or is that for the pure hockey fans, or was that for all of America? Because I didn't hear all America saying that.
It satisfied the pure hocky fans from the standpoint of now you had actually a competition.
Right.
You know, instead of just a bunch of guys scoring goals. Mm-hmm. And for the other people that were watching, you know, the casual fan, it was neat to watch, too, because you had a little tournament going on. Okay. And you got to see all phases of the tournament and then have a championship game. So I thought it was done really well. Yeah. I have no freaking clue what you do to the NBA to put it on that kind of a level. Well, I think you should just ditch the game now.
Well, go ahead, Jimmy. Your thoughts on that?
They should have, first off, the All-Star game is like street ball.
Right.
Like going down to Rucker Park in Harlem and playing street ball.
Okay.
What the NBA should do is this, in my opinion, is the same thing Major League Baseball did to clean up their All-Star game.
Yeah.
And that is
give it an incentive.
Whoever wins the East or the West.
Right.
Okay. Let's say it's the West team that wins. Whoever makes the finals, no matter what their record is, gets home court advantage in the NBA finals.
Okay, so that's the incentive that the Major League Baseball has. Now, Dave, hockey doesn't have any of that stuff, though, the incentive for the series or something.
Hockey gave them money.
That's right, they did. That was the additional incentive there.
Yeah,
the winning team got $1 million, right, or something like that? Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what you had going on there. So, you know, not only did they change the format, but they changed the reward that you get.
Yeah.
And I thought it produced, I had a lot of fun watching this year's All-Star game, to be honest.
Well, the NBA All-Star game actually kicked off, Friday night, Jimmy? They were in Toronto this year.
Friday night,
they had the
celebrity game.
Okay.
And the Kevin Hart, I call it the Kevin Hart game.
Yeah, they could do without that, really, because, I mean, I watched it from time to time, but I was not that impressed, because half those celebrities, I had no idea who the hell they were, especially the ones on the Canadian team. It's like, dude, okay, so he's a star in Canada. What's that, you know? But here's the other thing. The dunk contest, which they wanted to get rid of, I think that turned out the best thing they had at all was that competition. Go ahead, Jimmy.
But with the dunk contest, you should not be able to use, in my opinion, because I love basketball.
Right.
You should not be able to use mascots or jumping over
or
people.
Cars and stuff. Okay.
Or cars. Yeah. They should just use themselves. Yeah. You can throw the ball up in the air and dunk it, whatever. That's creative. But don't use mascots.
Well, do you see where they did this sort of like the salute to Dr. J and to also to Michael Jordan, where a couple of the players actually jumped from the three-point line and did the dunk that way, as opposed to all the acrobatics like over the head of the, you know, Dave, they had the mascot, right? This big woolly thing. Whose mascot was that anyhow, Jimmy?
Orlando.
That was Orlando's. What the hell is that thing? It's like a big old bear or something. I don't know. But anyhow.
Looks like Oopie that they used to have for the Expos.
Well, yeah, it looks like Oopie. Yeah, okay. Is that who that was? Oopie. Okay,
yeah,
but
the big orange thing, hairy thing that they had in Montreal.
There you go. It's probably they dyed the costume and then they took his ass out of Montreal, moved him to Orlando. Because he was on a hoverboard, wasn't he, Jimmy, at one given time, and spinning around, and this guy jumps around him and does, and it was cool. I mean, it was really cool. Now, in the three-point contest, okay,
By the way, his name is Stuff the Magic Dragon.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's why Orlando doesn't get anybody to come watch their basketball games. You can't even name your damn mascot like one name, Ralph, or something like that. Okay, so here's the deal with the NBA. So you had the three-point contest where Steph Curry, by the way, didn't win it. To my surprise, I think his teammate from the Warriors.
Thompson.
Is that who it was? Thompson.
Klay Thompson.
Yeah. So other than that, Dave, you didn't miss anything. If you didn't watch the NBA, you could actually watch it like within maybe 30 seconds, the highlights of it. It wasn't like the year that Shaq, remember the year Shaq came out and had that dance routine, Jimmy, as big as he was with that mask on? It wasn't like that. They did salute Kobe Bryant because he's on his way out of the league. Michael Jordan gave him like 2,000 pairs or $250,000 worth of sneakers. Like Kobe needs sneakers. He's got his own damn sneakers, but Michael Jordan gave him his, which are going to be worth a lot of money someday. The only other thing I could see that wasn't good about that contest was the scoring. I thought it was going over 500 points for sure. There was no freaking defense. Only 7 fouls all night, so they didn't have to worry about the hack-a-shack thing. And then Nelly Furtado, Dave, who was Canadian, she screwed up the whole Canadian national anthem. It's the worst you'll ever want to hear. Google it, go on YouTube, listen to it. I don't know if she was on drugs. I think she's been out of the business for a while because we haven't heard from her for a while. She used to be a great artist coming out of Canada. She's crap now, okay, and she's done. She's never come to do a hockey game because they'll throw her ass out of there, they'll beat her with sticks, and then throw her out.
And they should have got Jeff Chimerson to do the national anthem.
There you go. The guy's got the big voice.
There you go.
Oh, I love it whenever they start that, oh, Canada,
Our
with
free
this,
and native land.
And you know the words,
true
Dave.
patriot love, in all thy sons command.
Holy cow.
I'm done.
Okay, I probably like to have theirs instead of
Jimmy.
ours, because theirs has a little bit more rhythm to it, so. Anyhow, if you missed the NBA All-Star Game, don't worry. They'll repeat it again next year.
But the thing about the NBA All-Star Game, it is... How can I say it? You're always going to have Dwayne Wade. You're always going to have LeBron. You're always going to have Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Right?
It was good to see the new cats, though. I mean, some of the young kids,
You're always going to have Carmelo, the whole 9 yards, right? You're going to have that whole darn draft class.
Yeah. For a while, because, hey, listen.
There's other players, there's other players that should be in the All-Star Game that wasn't in the All-Star Game.
Right, but
that can play, like Damian Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely an All-Star.
Well,
I honestly don't think Dwayne Wade
Kobe
is an All-Star.
Yeah, but Kobe took up he's not an All-Star.
Only reason Kobe's in the All-Star Game is because it's
his last
Kobe
year.
Bryant, and it's his last year. But like I said, I don't think Dwayne Wade is as good as Dwayne Wade was a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I don't think Dwayne Wade should even started in the All-Star game.
Well, let's put it this way.
He got in that game because of his name, and that's what it is. It's what's your name, not how you play.
And the MVP again this year was
Russell Westbrook.
From last year as well. So the NBA All-Star Game is now history. We look forward to the spring baseball. And so we'll move on to hot stove baseball from that. Here on the airnetwork.net, it's Monday Night Sports Talk. Greg Banks in the studio. Jimmy Ty in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. And Dave Shannon, by the way, in Altoona live. If you want to jump on Skype, just make a contact to Greg Banks 3. That's Greg Banks 3, or call us up. 814-242-4845. That's 242-4845. Hey, Dave, won't be long now before the Pirates pack their shit and get. They're heading down south here. I imagine the truck's already on its way with all the equipment, don't you think?
Oh, it's been down there for a while.
Okay, I'm thinking last week they left. Yeah.
There have been guys down there that have been working out. Jung Ho Gung is one of the people that's been down there trying to get ready.
Yeah.
And
Kutch's down there.
Kutch has been down there, Hey, but let me ask you this, because, again, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse, I saw again today, I don't know, they didn't rank very high, according to USA Today, from what I saw, as they kind of speculate, where these teams are going to land this year. The weakness
actually,
is...
they projected the number of wins.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
What do you think, 180?
Projected for 87.
87,
while
okay.
it was 97 for the Cardinals and
right.
101 for the Cubs.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Cubs, huh?
Yeah, that was their projection for the Cubs.
So they'll be the cats that we watch this year, which says right off the bat we're gonna have to sneak in. Well, actually, with that, we wouldn't even be able to sneak in, would we, to wild card this year? And Dave, you and I talked about this a little bit, but Jimmy, for your benefit, they've got the infield where they're making some adjustments. First base seems to be the only question mark because there are 3 guys that could be playing first base. The outfield's already taken care of. Pitching-wise, Melanson has been signed, and he'll be back to relieve. Dave, who were we talking about, like, as far as starting was the little suspect there this year?
Well, I think, you got Cole is going to be the ace of the staff.
Okay.
Liriano will be there. Their recent, what's that?
Jeff Locke.
Yeah, Locke will be there. That's the one.
Jeff
yeah,
Locke.
See, that's who Dave gets stuck on.
I basically said if he's on the starting rotation by the time they leave spring training, there's something rotten in Denmark, and they may only get 80 wins for Pete's sake.
Right.
But at any rate, their recent acquisition from the Mets.
What was his name? Not Jose.
John Neese.
Yeah, John Neese.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Neese will be a starter. You have the old Pirate. Yeah, Vogelsong coming back.
Vogelsong's back, yeah.
And so your 5th position is the one that's in question.
Okay.
It could be Locke, or it could be, Tyone.
Tyone's the other one I was thinking of too, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, Jameson Tyone. We'll see how he does in the spring.
Yeah.
And you also have what's the other rookie's name, Jimmy? Who's down there as far as pitching goes?
Yeah, see that guy.
Yeah, Glasnow. Yeah.
Glasnow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have those 2 guys, and hopefully one of those 2 guys show what they need to see, and can, because starting Jeff Locke again is just too painful to watch.
Well, when they first come into camp, Dave, of course, pitcher catchers report and then the rest of the team, but they also bring in their farm system to work out a lot of days down there too, where they can get an early look at some of these guys for a week or two. And there might be 1 or 2 guys that might just catch the eye of Clint Hurdle while he's down there, or perhaps the front office.
Searage, hopefully.
Yeah, Coach Searage. And that would, in cases like that, I mean, obviously, if he's a prospect, he's been on your farm team for a while, you already know. But at least it gives them a good idea of who to bring up maybe after the All-Star break in many instances, I would say.
Or depending on if an injury hits.
Yeah,
who
that's
do you
true.
Call up?
Yeah.
If somebody's out for a while and on the injured reserve, then you know who you're going to be calling up.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping also that Josh Bell shows them something in spring training. And one of the things you have to remember about a spring training game, you may not even see the regular starters in the early starts.
No.
And
then they play those split
eventually
squads.
You get to a point where they're just starting and maybe playing 3 innings, and then you get those guys back in there again.
Right.
So we're going to get plenty of views of what is down in the minor leagues, and depending on how they show themselves and the opportunities that they have, you'll see them get more opportunities throughout spring training.
Yeah.
And, of course, they make cuts throughout the course of spring training, not unlike what the NFL does.
Right.
You keep cutting your roster back.
Yeah.
And eventually you get down to your 25. And so go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, watch out for there's one player Pittsburgh should be excited for. That Alan Henson. He played for Altoona. I believe it was like last year.
Right.
Yeah.
He's an infielder, but, he could come up during the All-Star. He could come up by All-Star game.
Well, also, where would he probably go over to Indianapolis at first? I mean, he's going up to AAA. Yeah. Who's their single A team now? Is that down in Florida yet?
Bradenton Marauders.
Okay, Bradenton. Okay, and I was just thinking, because I've been to camp several years back in the 90s, and how that normally works is they bring all the prospects in. They have the dormitories there. Most of the guys, like Kutch and those guys, they get the afternoon off when these guys are still working, obviously, on many occasions. And then, of course, they have the split squads, and they may run over Dunedin or maybe St. Pete or Tampa Bay, and most of the guys, they're just getting a little extra work down there before they come up here into the cold confines of the North. So it'll be interesting to see how the Pirates do this year, Dave, and I'm glad you gave us heads up on how they kind of rank according to USA Today. We're looking forward to it. By the way, Jimmy, up here, Root Sports is already repeating some of the games from last year. So, Dave, are you digging some of those games? I mean, like to kind of relive them, or did you already DVR them last year?
No, I have not watched one of them yet.
Okay.
There's enough hockey out here that I'm keeping an eye on, and so therefore I don't, for example, last night with the NBA AllStar Game, I was watching the Flyers and the Rangers, actually. Yeah,
Jimmy, your old team. Jimmy, you haven't kind of given any loyalty to the Broad Street Bullies, are you? I mean, just because you live down in that area? I mean, you're not.
I will never, ever like that. Philadelphia Criers.
Criers, he calls them. Yeah, buddy. All right, Dave, speaking of hockey, tell us a little bit about what the Penguins have been doing. Now, I understand they were on the road, I believe, since Friday night, and their dads came in, too, to travel with them. Did you know anything about that?
They do this every year. It's the dad's trip.
Yeah, so how'd that work out for them on the ice and on the road this year?
Well, obviously the players like it.
Take
almost
your time.
to the
I'll be
point
back.
where some of them, when they interview them, get emotional about the fact that they're able to have their dad with them in the middle of the season because, one of the things that happens when you're in professional sports, your family kind of takes a back seat while you go make the money so that they have a good life the rest of the year. And so family becomes almost a non-starter for any professional league. And to have that opportunity to have your dad with you on a trip like that is the players just really eat it up. And I'm sure the dads do too. I mean, tough deal. You got to get on a plane and go to Florida for Pete's sake. So in this case with the Penguins. So, nice trip for them. And hopefully the Pens can come up with a win here tonight. Just underway, by the way, against the Panthers. And there's no score at the moment. So
how do they match up with the Panthers? And by the way, happy birthday, Jaromir Jagr. He's 44. That's the oldest dude in the league, isn't it?
Do believe. And, he's got I don't know what his fountain of youth is, but he ought to be selling it to people because he can make a fortune.
How long do you think he'll actually be able to play this game, Dave? I mean, we say every year, this will be his last year, and the guy just keeps going.
I don't see anything to limit him at this point. Some sort of injury that could happen, sure. That would probably bring his career to an end.
Right.
But right now, he's in a good situation in Florida. They've kind of built a reasonable part of the defense around him. He still has an outstanding shot and is still capable of creating a lot of interference on the ice so that goalies can't see what they're doing, and then he can just rip it in on you. So, I could see him, unless he really starts to lose any kind of speed at all. He still seems to have that. He's a big guy, has big strides, and until that leaves him, he's going to be a viable force in the NHL.
He may still be skating at 48, man. I mean, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Hey, tell us a little bit about the power, the weaknesses, and, of course, how this whole run's going to go for these guys as we head towards the end of the season here for the Penguins.
Well, everything is really tight in the East, and the Penguins are in there within, 4 or 5 points of, being in the upper echelon of the East at this point. Very pleased to the way they've responded, and I knew they would, to Mike Sullivan, just a completely different individual from Mike Johnston, and I could see that coming. They've responded to that, and right now there's one thing that they need to have happen here as soon as possible, and that's to get Jagr back into the lineup so that cohesion can take place between he and Phil Kessel and Carl Hagelin, because I said this last week, and I'll continue to say it. I think once they are used to each other and being able to read each other's moves, that will be the most dangerous line in hockey at some point. And that's going to take some time, but it needs to have Malkin back in it. So as soon as they get Malkin back, it'll, that's going to be a big deal. They need to get over that hump. I'm going to be curious. I don't know what they would necessarily do here at the trade deadline that would make the team any better. I don't really know what move that would be. I don't know who they could get. So Penguins, to me, are in good shape. There's going to be some games they're going to lose here as they, go down to the end. And we'll see how critical they are. Right now, they're in striking distance. So, all they have to do is keep up the pace that they're on, and I think they're in the playoffs.
You think it'll be contingent on what some of those New York teams do? Or, I mean, is it inevitable that if they lose, like get a losing streak, they're out altogether? I mean, could they possibly miss the playoffs?
Oh, yeah, I think they could, but I think that Mike Sullivan has them playing at a level that's completely different and would allow them to play through that. One thing I was disappointed in, I don't know if you saw the game, Greg, against the Rangers, a very bad game.
No, I didn't see that game. No, I watched Friday night's game, I think it was.
Against Carolina.
Some of that, I watched that,
The Rangers game was a big letdown. And, ultimately, it's one thing to get into the playoffs. I think you always want to make a half-decent run in the playoffs as well. And to see how poorly they played against the Rangers would lead you to, they're in the first round and then they're done after that. So,
Hey, Dave, if you had to make up your ultimate line from the guys you would want on the ice the most, or at least at crucial times on that team, who makes up that line? I mean, who's on that line? Because we mentioned the young guy that they brought in probably about a month ago. Not Highline. What was the gentleman's name that they brought over?
Shiri?
No, they brought him over from was it from Anaheim? I think it was. And
Carl Hagelin.
Hagelin, and he was looking good. So how do you make up the line? And like tonight, how's it going to look, or how would it look in your lineup?
Well, the tough thing is, I think, you could play plug and play between Malkin and Crosby. But I think that the way that Mike Sullivan is looking at this, and maybe the way Jim Rutherford's looking at it, it's going to be Malkin with Kessel and Hagelin.
Okay.
So, as long as that continues on, I'd love to see Crosby out there with Hagelin and Kessel.
Yeah.
I think that would provide some interesting stuff. But I'll tell you what, Crosby does a really nice job. He's out there with Hornquist and Kunitz every night.
And what's the status report on Malkin? I mean, as you see it, as far as his recovery as we make it towards the playoffs. I mean,
last thing that I saw was from today, and the trainer in Pittsburgh, because Evgeni is working out with the trainers back in Pittsburgh while the team is on the road.
Right.
And the trainer said that he's really looking good, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him back in the lineup here in one or two games, and that's a good thing for the Penguins. They need to get him out there and get the experience with his other line mates.
Right. Penguins on the ice right now, I believe. What time's that game? Is it underway now, Dave?
13:52 left in the first, no score.
No score, and they're taking on the Panthers this evening. So, best of luck to the Penguins. Meanwhile, Monday Night Sports Talk, Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon live in Altoona, Jimmy Ty, by the way, in Hamburg. Jimmy, welcome back, by the way. We missed you over the Super Bowl stuff. We did get your we got your prediction, but you screwed it up, and we did too. And but however, I should say this: there was a lady named Thelma that called in from Florida. She hit it right on the head. Sentimentally, she went with the Broncos, even though she kind of liked the Panthers, and she gave the score 24-10. So to Thelma, if you're listening tonight, dear, call us up 814-242-4845, 814-242-4845. Hey, guys, I'm not following this college basketball real close right now, but I did watch that Duke-Virginia game the other evening, and I'm surprised Virginia is in the hunt this year. And I'm more surprised that Maryland's making a run for it, man, like in the Big Ten. And having said that, as we look from top to bottom, Villanova's in the mix there too, Jimmy. Are you aware that they're playing fine basketball this year?
Villanova always had a good basketball tradition.
They had a great tradition, but they didn't always have a good team. They
always had a good team.
Okay.
It's just that nobody really paid attention to Villanova because you always had Kentucky, you always had Kansas and Duke and North Carolina.
Yeah.
But nobody really paid attention to Villanova. But once Oklahoma lost, and then Duke start losing, that put Villanova up on the top list.
And how's Kentucky looking this year? I mean, because they're always in the mix. At least we think they're in the mix. Not good
at all.
They don't make a run for it.
They'll make March Madness.
Yeah.
But the team to watch out for in March Madness is Oklahoma and Buddy Hield.
Oh, Buddy Hield. And he choked the other night watching that Kansas State game, I think it was.
Choked against Kansas State, but but when he played against Kansas, he was nervous in the first half.
Yeah.
But came alive in the second half.
Is he your player of the year, or how about Simmons from the LSU?
Hield. Buddy Hield, because he's the one who is putting that team on his shoulders.
Okay, let me ask you this about Hield. Is he a sophomore or is
senior.
He? Okay, he is a senior, so he will go. So you think he'll do all right in the NBA? I mean, obviously.
Definitely.
Okay.
If he isn't the number one pick, something's rotten in Denmark.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Definitely.
Finally, you get a senior that you can select, and you'll have these lower classmen or at least like these sophomores coming out, in droves. That's kind of always nice to see. But let me ask you this, guys, in terms of basketball. Top 5, Jimmy, any idea who your top 5 would be this year? Would you go with, I see in many polls Villanova's at the top. Then I see Maryland at the top of some of these polls. I believe it is Oklahoma. Kansas is in the mix too.
Michigan State.
Michigan State was there as well.
But there's a sleeper that nobody's talking about.
And who is that?
Iowa.
Okay. Yeah.
Watch out for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And they're Big Ten favorites too. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right now that there's three teams that top the Big Ten: Maryland,
right,
Michigan State,
and Iowa. Okay. Hey, let me ask you this. I saw interesting enough. Shaka Smart went down to where, Texas this year? I think that's where he's coaching. Yep. That's a good move for him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was a great move for him. But SMU, what's your thoughts on them? They've sort of like gotten the death notice, but they were undefeated for most of the season this year. But there again, who is it? Larry Brown, is that the coach down there with the professional background? He's got to be hurting, man, when you have a team like that and you're not going to anybody's dance.
You have a team like SMU, but last year in the tournament, they played UCLA.
Okay.
In the first round, and the shot should have never counted against UCLA. So SMU should have won that game, but it was a mess up with the shot clock or something like that. But yeah, if I was Larry Brown right now, I'm hurting, man, because you have a team that knew that was going to come back and do it all, but now they're NCAA violations. You can't go to tournament. It's just sad, and that's the thing that we were talking about earlier on in the show.
Yeah.
About your NCAA violations and things like that.
Yeah.
Who knows what goes on in these college campuses? And something happened at SMU, and they got struck again.
Hey, Dave, just got news in, and I don't know if this came in earlier or not. Greg Norman has been fired by Fox TV doing those golf matches. Fox has pretty much struggled doing golf anyhow, but now they take a guy we were talking about icons when it comes to sports. He's certainly a golfing icon. It says here Greg Norman speaks out over firing at Fox, and I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Do either one of you guys know what happened in his firing?
Catches me by surprise.
Yeah, well, I've got the headlines up here now if I can get into this story. We'll wrap that up maybe before we leave this evening. But having said that, high school basketball districts getting underway tonight in many venues throughout central Pennsylvania. Huntington Bearcats, by the way, did enter into the tournament this year, although they didn't have the greatest season. But
10-12.
Yeah, so
you're the fifth seed.
Well, having said that, when you get into pairings like this, and I think we probably touched on this years ago, you and I, Dave, when a team is let's say 8 and 15, would you accept a bid to that district? I mean, because you got to pay money to enter these things. I mean. Or could Huntington emerge, in this instance, as maybe one of the top dogs when it's all said and done?
Well, they may be able to get their opponent in the first round is Forest Hills.
Okay.
And the Rangers are 12-10 this year.
Right.
But the winner of that game, Hollidaysburg, gets a bye in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who they get. They get the top seed. They get the Hollidaysburg will play the winner of Huntington Forest Hills.
Okay, right.
And on the other side of the ledger, You got Somerset taking on Bellefonte, Johnstown taking on Bedford. Somerset Bellefonte's a 2-7, and Bellefonte's record 6-16. Johnstown, the 3 seed with a 12-9 mark against the 6 seed Bedford at 8-14.
Okay.
So that's the way that all sets up. Huntingdon, they may get a win out of the postseason, and that's always a good thing to build on. If you can make it into the tournament and go ahead and get, pick up a win, that builds confidence for future years.
Yeah, Huntingdon boys, by the way, took on Phillipsburg Osceola. I believe that was on Friday evening, and they got a kind of a first quarter boost from Jonathan Price, as I read the Huntingdon Daily News. And so they could be primed to move on into the district playoffs. Speaking of which, let's talk about some of the other sports here locally. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Real quick about Greg Norman.
Yeah.
Paul Azinger is going to replace him.
Okay.
And the reason why Norman got fired?
Yes, sir.
He sucked as a golf analyst.
Well, okay, and that happens. And sometimes people aren't truthful, are they, Dave? I mean, they just...
They were going to put Joe Buck
Yeah.
and Greg Norman together, and it was just a train wreck.
Okay. He said he was shocked by the direction that they were going, but had nothing but good things to say about the crew. He was making his professional debut as a golf analyst in what was Fox's first year in its USGA package. Now, I don't know if you guys watched any of their coverage last year, but that was definitely a train wreck, man. Their coverage didn't look anything like, the standard bearer, Dave, is what, CBS. I mean, in NBC, at least CBS.
Yeah.
And when you watch that and you compared what Fox was serving up compared to what CBS has been serving up for, probably the last 30, 40 years, if not longer, it's like, dude, why are you can't even follow the ball. I mean, I don't know what it is that they were doing, but you know how CBS takes that long shot and you see the ball the whole way? Right. Fox was losing the ball every time. And, that made me think about when Fox got hockey one year and they put the tracer on the puck, so you could follow the puck. I thought, oh, shit, now they're going to put a tracer on these golf balls, and that's going to really screw up coverage with golf.
The only thing Fox does good in sports, NASCAR,
right, yeah.
And NFL football.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's it.
So, they're behind. I guess they have to kind of get into the learning curve, and it takes years to perfect that when it comes to golf. So I just wanted to make mention, Greg Norman speaking out after getting fired at Fox. Let's go turn our attention to wrestling, by the way. PIAA Class A team tournaments happening in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Of course, Huntingdon got beat in the dual districts. Actually, I think they won the dual districts. I have to go back and take a look at my notes. But Huntingdon wrestling teams reached the PIAA team tournament quarterfinals with a big whooping over New Hope, I believe it was, Salisbury. That was on Thursday afternoon, 70-12. However, 70-12. So basically, what happened was they came out on Friday and they lost twice. Huntingdon dropped a 45-18 quarterfinal decision to defending Class AA champion Reynolds, then fell 42-20 to District 5 champion Chestnut Ridge in the second round of consolations. By the way, the Bearcats end their season with a 17-3 dual record, and now they'll move on to the district wrestling individuals and, of course, regionals and the states. And we understand, in talking with our friend Chad, we have a couple of possibilities. We've got John Wagner, who's been a place winner before in the states. Jake Oliver, a little doubtful at this point because he had a shoulder injury, but they're thinking that Jake might be ready to go in the states coming up soon with the district tournament. So we wish the Huntingdon Bearcat basketball, boys and girls, and high school wrestling the best of luck. Let me ask you guys this question as we get ready to wrap up this edition of Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Give it some thought, because I was thinking of this today, being that it's President's Day. There you have Mount Rushmore with, how many guys are on Mount Rushmore? Four guys, right? Four guys.
Four guys.
Dave and Jimmy, if you were to select, and think about this now, 4 sports figures that you could put on Mount Rushmore, who would be the 4 prominent figures that would be your Mount Rushmore of sports? Now, let me give you mine right off the bat.
Are they playing right now?
Well, they could be playing now or from the past? Because I'm combining a couple of guys here. Number one, Muhammad Ali will certainly be on my Mount Rushmore. Michael Jordan would be on Mount Rushmore. Recently, Derek Jeter. I think I would put him on Mount Rushmore. And let's see if I can find one other guy. Oh, geez. Greg Louganis. I'll put him on there. Just for shits and giggles, because why would you put a swimmer on a mountain? But I did. Because I couldn't think of anybody else. Jimmy.
He was a diver.
Diver, yeah, thank you.
Diver.
Okay, diver. I'm sorry. Jimmy, who's your Mount Rushmore? The four you'd put on there.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Think about
I
it
would
now.
put Jerry Rice.
All right.
I would put Michael Jordan.
Okay.
I would put in, let's say, what baseball player?
Yeah, think of a baseball player. Babe Ruth, maybe, or is he too big?
No, he's too old.
Okay.
Maybe I would put in a player like, I don't know. Okay, let's go with Joe DiMaggio.
Okay, that'd be cool. Yeah.
And Mike Tyson.
Okay, Mike Tyson, as opposed to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Because that's generational. You don't remember Muhammad Ali boxing, right? So,
Mike
okay.
Tyson.
All right, Dave, who are you thinking about? Louganis, by the way, I could change that up. It could be a bunch of other guys, but I won't even mess with it now. Dave, your Mount Rushmore?
Gretzky.
Yeah.
My Mount Rushmore, let me see. I'm going to start
Of sports.
and go with Serena Williams.
Okay.
And then I'm going with Wayne Gretzky,
Okay, that's a good one.
Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
And why are you groaning?
Yeah,
Jimmy?
why, Jimmy?
Because I should have picked them, too.
Yeah, you didn't. You didn't. And I'm taking Louganis out in a minute here. Keep going, Dave.
And let me see. My fourth guy is going to be.
Okay, who are your first
I'm going to go
three?
with Bart Starr.
Bart
I'll throw
Starr.
Bart Starr out. there.
Okay, so Bart Starr, your first one I think you picked was who again?
Serena Williams.
Serena Williams. Okay, and then you said I don't
the
remember.
second one, Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky. Okay,
Roberto Clemente.
right, and then
Bart Starr.
okay, I just kicked off Louganis. He's not getting on Mount Rushmore. I'm putting Lemieux there. I'm putting Mario Lemieux on Mount
I don't even remember
Rushmore.
mine. I don't remember mine.
Well, that's all right. It's on tape now, Jimmy. We'll just play it back tonight. That's
play it
all.
back.
It's too late, man. We've already committed to this mountain now. All right. Hey, thanks, Dave. Thank you, Jimmy, for joining us on Monday Night Sports Talk. I had a great time, man. Yeah. Hey, we'll see you back here next week, next Monday night from 7 to 8. It's live on the airnetwork.net. Have a great one, everybody. Happy President's Day.